living quarters, office areas, and science labs. Logically, I can appreciate that the lack of variety makes sense. It's an institution designed to house people that do science, not a fun fair. Nevertheless, the lack of variety doesn't provide much incentive to stop and admire your surroundings beyond the initial few hours. Good immersive sims like Bioshock and Dishonored weave stories into their environments, telling micro-stories in the process. But in Prey, those stories are limited to the uninteresting. A space station ruined by a catastrophic event and the hubris of its leaders is evocative in itself, but Prey never colours in the outline of these events, making the world feel like it lacks depth. Smaller tales involving the People Station on Talos 1 can be found by reading emails at computer terminals, and although they provide a little more to latch onto, by and large it's all fairly forgettable. There's the occasional meaningful exchange, but the abundance of mundane notes between colleagues makes reading them a chore, and overall they feel like filler for an overarching narrative that's stretched thin. A key part of Prey's story involves presenting conflicting evidence about Morgan's personality before the memory loss, specifically her intent for Talos 1 and her contingency for a Typhon outbreak. The game wants you to define your Morgan, but it only serves up a handful of moments to invite you to do so. These come in the form of uninspired missions for characters who come off as distractions from the main narrative instead of pivotal figures in the story. Prey makes an honest effort of raising the profile of these people, but it happens late in the game, and when all said and done, the characters didn't really speak to me. There's a restraint to Prey that creates a disquieting quality in Talos 1, but when this philosophy is extended to its characters, it just makes them fade away. Who can be blamed for thinking about ignoring a guy that wants you to go out of your way to fetch a personal artifact, or a lady who asks you to spend precious resources in battling Typhon to grab her some medicine? It turns out, however, these menial tasks are critical to the ending, and when the game laid out the unexpected way it's all tied together, the revelation didn't feel earned. Prey does occasionally deliver an engaging mission, but they're few and far in between. Prey's gameplay experience fares better, but it's uneven, and at times, the systems feel at odds with themselves. With limited access to weapons and special abilities, much of the early game feels like a slog. It's like the worst parts of a survival horror, a punishing war of attrition, but without the cycle of tension and release that makes it enjoyable. This becomes more pronounced when you consider that mimics, the most prevalent type of Typhon enemy in the early stages, have a tendency of appearing in blind spots and catching you off guard. This aspect of the game is both exhilarating and infuriating. The mimics are small, highly mobile creatures that can shapeshift into innocuous objects around them. While this was effective in creating tension, I felt that it also detracted from exploration. I wasn't sulking in the atmosphere as much as I was painstakingly scouring it to find that mimic before it chips away at my health. And when I took on the mimic, the lethargic controls of gunplay coupled with the small black spider darting around the floor of a dimly lit room and leaping off walls made me feel more like Mr. Bean. I also felt forced to play conservatively for most of the game. The scarcity of health packs and ammunition meant it was in my best interest to sneak by enemies, which goes against Prey's claim that you can play your way, and became frustrating when enemies swarmed around objectives. As the game progresses, however, neuromods become more abundant, which in turn means that you can unlock abilities that level the playing field somewhat. This is when Prey's combat opens up, and while it doesn't provide as much room for creativity as Dishonored 2, weapon and ability combinations develop a satisfying synergy. Some powers allow you to take control of enemies to fight alongside you for a short period of time, or teleport you short distances to get the jump on enemies. As new foes are introduced, it becomes imperative to use the Psychoscope, a helmet with a scanner on it, to research the Typhon and reveal their individual weaknesses, while also unearthing more abilities to unlock. The downside of using alien powers is that turrets littered around Talos 1 identify you as being part Typhon and open fire on you. Again, early on this feels like punishment for trying to explore the more interesting wrinkles of combat, but with time, turrets also become less of an issue as they can be hacked or easily destroyed. In its later stages, Prey's combat feels varied and strategic. You also gain the ability to break down and reassemble junk into useful items ranging from weaponry and neuromod upgrades to turrets and medpacks. Having this ability eased the lack of resources and empowered me to really approach combat and exploration how I wanted. I could go into any scenario feeling like I had a decent shot of defeating the Typhon and achieving my objective. Neuromods can also be used to solve Prey's puzzles, which mostly involve figuring out how to gain entry into inaccessible locations. While not challenging, these puzzles shine a spotlight on the layout of Talos by allowing you a degree of freedom in how you approach them. On a small scale, looping vents, multi-layered rooms, and gravity lifts that act as arteries throughout the station show consideration has been given to the physical construction of Talos 1. The glue cannon is particularly effective in showing how Prey's environments can fold in on themselves. Its foam can be launched at walls, and when it hardens, Morgan can use it as a makeshift platform. This makes it possible to circumvent the obvious path in favor of a more diverse approach, highlighting the thoughtful level design. Unfortunately, I encountered a number of technical issues with Prey in my playthrough, the most severe of which prevented quest progression entirely. These had to be resolved by loading an earlier save, which meant losing some progress. Prey also suffers from lengthy load times when moving between areas, and characters frequently clip through walls, resulting in an overall experience that feels rough. Prey is a game of uneven pacing and uninteresting characters. It opens with a poignant, thought-provoking premises, but fails to follow through until the end, when it claims a revelation it doesn't quite earn. Its gameplay falters out of the gate, but eventually matures into something worthwhile, if a bit familiar. As an homage to System Shock, it's competent, and at times even enjoyable. However, Prey fails to distinguish itself, and next to immersive sim contemporaries such as Dishonored, it feels stagnant.
One last job.
I can do it. Who's the mark?
The one responsible for it all. The cults. The black magic. This mark on my hand. We're gonna kill the black-eyed bastard himself.
What? You want to kill the outsider? You want to kill God?
Tying up loose ends in a series focused on political intrigue and all things metaphysical can't be easy. In Dishonored, Death of the Outsider, a standalone game capping off the story from Dishonored 2, it covers the exploits of various side characters on a more personal quest that doesn't overstay its welcome. Arcane Studios continues its tradition of coming up with an incredibly inventive and cunning game about elusive assassins making their mark on the world around them, while choosing where and when to make the tough choices.
My name is Billy Lurk, though there aren't many people who remember. For years, I stayed hidden, captain of a ship called the Dreadful Whale.
Set several months after Dishonored 2, Emily Caldwin and Corvo Otano have since left the Isle of Karnaca, leaving Billy Lurk, under the alias Megan Foster in Dishonored 2, to return to her old ways to track down her former mentor Dowd. Pulling from her skills working under the Master Assassin, they form a plan to confront the Outsider, a deity of the Void Realm and instigator of events throughout the series. Billy Lurk will use her newfound powers to sneak, loot, and track down key targets to find a way to eliminate the demigod once and for all. With no mark bestowed from the Outsider, she is freed from the demigod's watchful gaze, making the chaos system of past games non-existent. This serves to set the tone for what players can expect in Death of the Outsider, where the moral ambiguity of the story matches the gameplay, allowing her to go about missions in different and inventive ways, often going for a more improvised style that blends lethal and non-lethal moves. Much like the previous games, Death of the Outsider makes effective use of large, open levels, with each city block holding a number of side events and points of interest. Billy's approach is a bit different compared to the exploits of Corvo, Emily, and Dowd. Focusing more on seeking justice for all that's happened in her past, her story aims to round out the narrative presented in both Dishonored games. But the general flow feels lacking and somewhat unearned. While starting strong, the story eventually runs out of steam, with its final missions falling a bit flat. With that said, there are many details packed in for Dishonored fans, revealing important notes that flesh out the events since the last game.
Every night for weeks, the same terrifying dream. A street fight, my arm dead and lying in the gutter, my eye gouged out by a Grand Guard sword. But when I wake up, they still hurt for hours. Gives me the creeps.
As an immersive sim, each character and object in the game space can be manipulated, opening up some rather interesting gameplay opportunities, like baiting enemies with thrown bottles to walk into traps, or some rather creative options like using the semblance power to mimic the appearance of other characters to get the jump on targets. The AI in Dishonored is as sharp as ever, and will require some planning to get through unscathed. But if going in full force is your thing, then the game won't discourage you. With the more lax gameplay systems on display, there's much more incentive to experiment with the tools at your disposal. Though Billy's overall repertoire of skills are much more lean compared to the other characters. While Corvo and Emily had a sizable pool of powers, the lone assassin has just 3, along with the side ability to Rat Whisper, where she can hear the thoughts of nearby rodents to learn clues and tidbits about characters in the area.
Delicious flesh, fresh, sweet, wet with hot blood, we sent it from the street. Oh, want it.
Focusing on the key areas of traversal, recon, and subterfuge, her powers will cover the key areas of what players will need throughout their missions. One power in particular, named Foresight, allows Billy to project herself as a specter to scout and mark targets. This skill is a standout, proving its usefulness time and again when locating bone charms and key items. While the core gameplay systems are razor sharp, the overall gameplay potential can feel a bit limited compared to the previous games. Creative players will certainly make the best of it, though it's disappointing to see that what you have at the beginning is largely what you have by the end. However, completing the game once will unlock the original Game Plus mode, replacing Billy's original powers with Blink, Domino, and Dark Vision from Dishonored 2, bringing back old feelings from past adventures.
In burials and vengeance. Games. It's the name from our.
Tell the outsider. I'm coming for him.
Only taking 7 hours to clear in the normal setting, there are several locations that beg for a return, such as the mission to infiltrate Karnaka's bank, leading to one of the series' most finely tuned levels. One feature brought in to add more variety are the new contracts found in the black market, where you can also buy items and upgrade your gear. Billy can take on a selection of side jobs from the citizens in Karnaka, ranging from the bizarre, such as killing an annoying mime and making it look like an accident, to the more morbid, like getting revenge on a sadistic doctor who experiments on his patients. Death of the Outsider channels much more of the spirit of classic stealth action games, giving room to experiment and prod aspects of the environment to see what works, without too many distractions from the story, along with a custom game mode allowing you to tune enemy difficulty, fail states, along with adding in a number of odd and challenging options like Iron Man mode. Death of the Outsider gives you a number of ways to define the type of stealth action game you want to play. In a lot of ways, the more relaxed style does more to complement the series' immersive sim design compared to its predecessors.
Kill the Outsider. I trust you to finish this.
I will, Dowd. One way or another.
Dishonored: Death of the Outsider is a solid, inventive, yet somewhat subdued capper to the stories from the previous games. While the smaller scope can be felt throughout, the approach to allowing players express themselves as a master assassin is as strong as ever. It's uncertain where the series can go from here, but this standalone release proves that Dishonored is still a remarkably designed stealth action game with much potential that offers players the chance to be creative in ways they'd least expect.
You carry an aura of confusion and despair. Tell this one. What did you see?
I saw a familiar place, covered in strange shadows. Shadows that are in plain view, yet hidden, waiting to pounce on fear. Crawling silently among us. Releasing poisons of deceit and hatred.
For purity.
Shadows that soar and grow in power. As chaos unfolds and consumes the world.
How did this vision of yours end?
died, all was lost.
The worst nightmares hunt us where we feel safest. At home.
At last.
It's a funny thing that reloading your save game is somehow going back in time and changing things.
What will change in the present based on what I do here tonight?
We had to design something that works only for one level. So that's not something you do in development. Usually you try to design things and make them work for the entire game. So the fact that the team went along with that was really cool. And I'm happy that this level is getting this attention. It's really cool.
If you've played Dishonored 2 or seen our video review, you'll know that a crack in the slab is an ambitious mission that allows players to time travel at the pull of a trigger. You use this power for one mission, but once it's finished, you can't use it again. From a development standpoint, that makes a crack in the slab highly unusual. Making games, particularly modern AAA games, is very expensive. To keep costs down, developers need to maximize what they get out of the things that they create. So making a complex gameplay mechanic like time travel for use in just one level is pretty rare. Another recent notable example would be the Effects and Cause mission in Titanfall 2, which is also built around time travel. I wanted to learn more about the development of a crack in the slab, where the idea came from, how Arcane managed to make two entirely different versions of the same area coexist, and the challenges it faced in executing this.
To do so, I Skyped with Arcane Studios' Christophe Carrier to talk about the making of Dishonored 2's most memorable mission.
The story of A Crack in the Slab began in 2009, when 2K Marin announced that Arcane would be assisting them with the design, animation, and art on Bioshock 2. It's on this project that the seed for A Crack in the Slab was planted, in particular a scripted event where protagonist subject Delta goes back in time.
At the time, I remember I thought, wow, that is awesome. That would be awesome if the player could control that, if he could have some device or something that could allow him to because to go back in time whenever he wanted, and it was it triggers a lot of reflections of what he could do in the past to change the present.
At the beginning of Dishonored 2, Empress Emily Caldwin is violently deposed by Delilah Copperspoon, who was trapped in the never-ending realm of the Void until her unexpected reappearance. Arcane needed a way to reveal to players how Delilah managed to come back from her prison and stage her coup.
And then when we had this situation where we wanted the player to see the ceremony, I thought, wow, that's the perfect mechanism to do this. And we already knew how to do it because we already did it for BioShock, except that it was scripted and not whenever you wanted. But technically it was feasible.
Mine Baron Aramis Stilton's grand manor is falling to pieces. The garden is overgrown, walls have collapsed, and dust has collected inside its great rooms. But with one use of the Outsider's timepiece, the player is transported 3 years into the past, when the regal mansion is pristine and beautiful. Use the timepiece again, and it's ruined once more.
To create this illusion, Arcane had to build multiple iterations of the mansion that exist separately from each other. However, to establish continuity between them, the player's actions in any of them had to be reflected in all of them.
As you know, if you change one particular thing in the level, I'm not going to spoil here, but then you end up with another level. So there are basically 3 levels in the map, piled up. You have one level and you have another one below it. And then when you activate the device, which at the beginning was just a dirty act from us, level designer, where you had almost a console command where you would enter a command and then it was teleporting you, like 1,000 units below. But it was easy to do because the mechanism is not complicated. It's just that you offset the position of the player, and of course we had to. After that, we have to take care of what if the player teleports in something that exists in one level but doesn't in the other one. So at the beginning, we were teleporting inside the objects, which was bad. So we had to find ways not to do it, but this came later.
Which is where the Outsider's timepiece comes in. This fan-like item serves as a window into the past or the future. While held in Emily or Corvo's hand, players can peek through its glass-like blades to see their surroundings in the other version of the mansion. This effectively mitigated the chances of teleporting into a group of enemies and also introduced an additional layer of strategy to the gameplay.
Well, first, in level design, there are rules where you don't want to, for example, with the blink, you don't want to blink up on a platform where there might be guards. We try to avoid this kind of situation where you don't see the guards that are up when you try to blink somewhere. That's one of the rules we try to reinforce. It's exactly the same thing with the time travel. You don't want to travel without seeing. You could as well travel in the middle of 5 guards, and it would be very frustrating and it would defeat the point of stealth. And so it was really important that the player could see where it was teleporting.
The timepiece really comes into its own during the puzzle where you need to input the code to enter Stilton's study. Complicating this is a group of guards patrolling the hallways, so players must avoid guards by shifting between timelines while quickly entering the code. This would be near impossible and incredibly frustrating without the timepiece's help.
These cause and effect puzzles where making changes to the past allows the player to overcome obstacles in the future prove to be the most challenging aspect of the level to design.
Puzzles are very hard to do because if you make them too simple, everybody will say, it's too simple, and that's not a puzzle, that's below me. And if you do the puzzles are too difficult, then people will get frustrated and they're gonna go online to find a solution, which we don't want that. So we have to balance the difficulty of the puzzle so that it's just as difficult, just difficult enough so that, you see what I mean? It's like a balance that is really tight.
Unless you're doing a no powers run, by the time you reach a crack in the slab, you should have accrued a number of abilities to use. However, once you step into Stilton's ruined manor, you find your powers drained due to the lasting effects of Delilah's ritual. Arcane had to toe a delicate line, make good use of their new mechanic, but without diminishing the player's now power-free experience.
The first idea was that you could remove some of the powers, and we were thinking about just leaving the far reach or the blink, so that because we were afraid that the player suddenly you remove the mobility power from the player, and it could be could be annoying or frustrating, or the player might not like that. But at the end of the day, the more we're trying it, this specific gameplay of jumping back in time, and we realized that it was cool in itself, and we didn't need to add any power.
Despite restricting otherworldly abilities like Hypnotize, Possession, and Wind Blast, Arcane opted to keep passive abilities active.
Removing passives like Agility, which allows Emily or Corvo to move faster, would have felt too disempowering to the player, who'd spent the game adapting their playstyle to the powers that they had.
Whereas with an active power, it's different. They know they can't use it, and it's clearer. I don't know if you see what I mean. It's like suddenly you tell people they can't run, they will feel very frustrated. If you tell them they can climb, it's different because they don't climb often and they know that it's in particular situations. Anyway, it was too punishing for the player to remove the passive powers. And so we kept the double jump for this level, but removed all the other powers.
Dishonored is about player choice, a game where you want your actions to have noticeable consequences. Originally, Arcane had big ideas for how player choice in A Crack in the Slab would impact the overall world state, but allowing these ramifications to extend beyond a single isolated mission could have created paradoxes that boggle the mind and may have broken the game.
The movie that I prefer is the one where you change something in the past, and then the present is different because of your action. In Arcane, we love when there are consequences to what you do. So it's perfect because you do something and you see consequences. The thing is, at the beginning, we wanted to go real far with the concept. Like, for example, we wanted that the entire Dust District would be different when you come back. Like, there's no Paolo, there's no Overseers, there's no war. These two factions fighting each other. We wanted them to not be here, and you could explore the levels, and the bar where Paolo is would be a normal bar with people, and then the mining building where the Overseers have put their HQ would have been the regular mining, but it was too much, of course. And this would happen only for a tiny fraction of players who would have done the thing that I told you before. What was I saying? So yeah, at the beginning we wanted to do something really big. And of course, we could not do this, it was too crazy. We tried to contain the changes so that they were not too crazy in terms of production. So we did things that are a bit hidden, but not too much. And most of the effort went into the puzzles that you have to, solve to progress.
I wonder what I was doing in Dunwall on this night. Or what I am doing.
Thanks for watching this insider's look at the creation of certainly my favourite Dishonored 2 level. For more deep dive videos like this one, make sure to check out GameSpot Studios' latest series, a look at the rise, fall and future of Resident Evil. For more videos just like this one, make sure to like and subscribe to GameSpot, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, can we just admire that right now?
Oh my god.
That was his skull and his, oh.
Too late. It's gone.
Yeah, love is fleeting after all. Hey guys, welcome back to Potato Mode, the show where we take the most beautiful games we know and turn them into mush. My name is Joey. I'm joined by Jean-Luc here.
Hello.
And today we are playing a game that some of you have suggested to us, Doom. So this was one of the bigger games that we saw left in the comments, and if you left a comment saying you wanted this game, we see you. Especially you, Wriggle Dap Studios.
This one's for you, dude.
We see all your comments. Now, if you haven't seen the show before, what we do is we take games like Doom that are really, really great looking, and we try to play them on the highest settings, and then we drop them down to the lowest settings, and then we try to go even further than that.
Yeah, and this is a good game to do it because this game is really pretty.
It is beautiful. It's one of 2016's most beautiful games, I think. Since we are in hell,
we're in
I
hell.
feel like it's fitting for us to go through the 9 circles and then in each circle drop a different setting and see how we can gradually make it look like mush.
Okay.
So if you haven't heard the... now I have to explain the 9 circles of hell to everyone that's
All
watching.
right, guys, everyone rip out your copies of Dante's Inferno.
Welcome to Heck, a friendly community.
So, Jean-Luc, if you want to go into the video settings real quick. So, lights and shadows.
Okay.
We'll start off with those first and just turn them off.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm not noticing too much of a difference. I'm sure there's some if we were to compare them side by side, but this is still looking pretty good. Looks like hell.
So what's next on the list?
Decal quality.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sure. Yeah, that's lusty. All right. A little muddier on the textures.
A little muddier, but
some
from
pop-in. Ooh, yeah, that's a little rough.
From
but
far away, though, it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
No.
And with Doom, you're moving so fast. Like
you barely pay attention to
all the textures on the rocks are just flying by you. You just care about the blood splatter and getting these sweet glory kills.
Oh, so good.
All right, let's go into the third circle here as you are chainsawing this guy in half. So next are reflections, particles, and shaders. It's getting a little bit hard to tell.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I think we're going to have to go a little bit quicker than this.
Depth of field, yeah, get rid of that. HDR
motion
bloom.
blur. Motion blur right there.
Motion blur, you're right. Thank you.
Get rid of it.
Dude, still looks good.
Oh.
Looks better than the Switch version.
Okay, we are skipping the next 3 circles of hell because they are clearly not going to help us at all. So we're going to just go straight to the 8th circle, which is fraud. So under resolution scale, just go all the way down.
Cool.
So this will
have our resolution here.
640 by 480 is the way to go.
Okay, this is gonna look weird.
That's the real hellish way to play Doom.
Oh, okay. Oh, we're in hell now, Joey. Hello, sir. Do you have any chainsaw ammo?
So I may split your stomach open and reap the rewards. Yes, do it.
Eat it.
Nice.
That'd have been really cool if I could see what it was.
All right, so now that we are in the 8th circle of hell, you know that there is one more circle left, right?
Oh, no.
And the 9th circle is treachery.
Oh, Joey, what are you going to do?
And there's a lot of treacherous things that I have planned for this final circle.
Oh, no.
So this is our good friend, the NVIDIA Profile Inspector, and we're going to change the values of the LOD bias and a couple other settings to make it look really, really potato-y, really nasty. All right, I think everything looks good to go.
Ooh.
So we're going to hit Apply Changes and jump back in.
Oh, my God.
That was your cursor before at one point.
That's my mouse cursor, Joey.
Yeah. Oh, you got to make sure you read up on your history of this place.
Oh, perfect. It's all been redacted. Oh, wow.
Oh.
Okay,
let's go outside.
Boy.
Get some fresh air.
Oh! Whoa!
That wasn't good at all.
What about this guy? Yup.
I think we might need to slow motion some of these just because they're going by so fast when you do the glory kill. Okay, so we changed it back to 16 by 9 and
I lost my HUD.
1080p just because we want to see the glorious muddiness. Also in that process, we have lost the HUD, yes.
Yeah, there's no HUD.
He wants out.
Oh, he's gone. Oh, look at that. It's my amazing collectible.
Which one was it? We will never know.
Hello, sir. He's like examining them.
How's this one? No, I'm gonna have to.
Not right. It doesn't look right. Yeah, I love that ability. It's my favorite.
Oh, the gold one? The gold one's definitely better than the white one.
Look at all those exclamation
Do you
points.
remember when you found that one thing that one time? Because I sure don't. I'm wondering how many frames per second we're getting on this. It has to be at least like a couple hundred, right?
We can check actually.
That is a lot of metrics that we do not know what any of them do.
I love it. Oh, look at that. We're getting a solid 200 frames here. All the bars are green. All the numbers are green. This is a healthy video game right here. There's something about this game just looking like just mud And then we got like, well, we got to put up our metrics. We got to make sure,
run some benchmarks.
Yeah.
Gotta make sure everything is in tip-top shape, so that we can run it with everything looking like this.
Oh, it's like an early 360 game running on the Unreal Engine.
It was when textures that were shiny were considered good.
Yeah, that was HD.
Like anything that was like shiny or had any sort of reflection, you were like, yeah, this game is awesome.
This is HD. This is the future. Oh boy, look at that skybox.
So we've changed it to arcade mode.
We're back in hell, and wow, let me tell you, in hell it really becomes apparent.
Oh, how is it that hell looks? Okay, I guess there's no question why hell looks worse than real life, but
it looks more hellish, to be honest. I think we improved it.
Okay, this guy. This is what I want to see.
This is what you wanted to see.
Please.
Yeah. Also, I can't see what my score is at all in arcade mode.
Something you're doing good. Just
sure.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. All right, thanks. We definitely broke the UI, Joey. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, let's just can we just admire that right now?
Oh my god.
That was his skull and his oh.
Too late. It's gone.
Yeah, love is fleeting after all. This is what I came to see.
It's like cutting into a jelly donut.
This is what I needed in my life.
Again, you sort of get into the zen state when you're playing Doom.
Yeah.
That you're barely paying attention to what's happening, like the visuals.
Yeah, you're just circle strafing everything.
At a certain point, this honestly doesn't feel that different. It's like, yeah, this is Doom. Could the game even be classified as M anymore at this point? I mean, maybe.
Rated M for mush. How about that? We'll go with that.
It's ketchup. It's just ketchup on everyone. Okay, so if I... Look at that. Slow motion. Actually, it just froze.
It just froze it?
That's not how it works. So it's still moving in slow-mo, but whatever we did to the game broke the way the slow-mo works, because it's not as smooth. It's like stopping and then going a little bit.
Starting a little bit.
Starting a little bit. Anyway, let's...
just get rid of everything here.
Just turn them all into dust.
By the way, I really like that statue on the left right there.
I love those dudes. You know what they look like? They actually look like if you were to carve a statue out of potato.
Those are our mascots right there. Like, can we ask Bethesda and id for maybe like, I don't know, some sort of a carving, maybe
like a cacodemon?
Can we get a special edition Doom package with those in there, looking exactly how they are? I would love that. Bethesda, if you're listening, please.
Please. Pete Hines.
Please.
Message us. Get him, get him.
Oh, mush all around it. And he just disappeared. Okay, well, I guess
and that's gone.
That's going to be it for this week's Potato Mode. Again, if you have a game that you'd like to see potato-fied, I'm pretty sure that's the official term right now, leave it in the comments below, and someday we'll get to it, as we did with Doom right here. My name is Joey. Here's Jean-Luc.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll see you guys next Friday. Just imagine posting this on like the message boards for like Doom benchmarks. Yeah, I got it running at like a good 150 frames per second. You know, CPU temps all pretty cool. You know, my GPU is not even really like stressing at all. The only thing is that it just looks like utter crap.
When it comes to the enduring legacy of video game series, Wolfenstein is a special one. It's most known for Wolfenstein 3D, the game credited for the creation of the first-person shooter genre. But what you may not know is that Wolfenstein's roots go back even further, and is actually one of the early pioneers of stealth in video games. Can you believe that? Not only that, but over its 36-year-long history, each Wolfenstein game is a perfect representation of that era of shooters in gaming. So, in honor of the release of the new Colossus, we're gonna take a look back at a history of shooting, stabbing, and killing Nazis. Before we get to the game everyone thinks of when they hear the name Wolfenstein, we need to start 2 decades earlier with a man named Silas Warner. Warner was an early pioneer of computer programming, having had access to computers in college and getting his first contract job developing software for IBM mainframe in 1970. Working as an undergraduate assistant at Indiana University after finishing his degree, he was given access to a system called Plato, which stands for Programmed Logic for Automated Teaching Operations.
Up until the time of the microcomputer, the closest thing you could get to an outstanding game machine was a system called Plato. It's been developed at the University of Illinois. It was a gigantic CDC mainframe computer connected to 1,000 terminals around the country. The great advantage of these terminals was that they were all identical, with identical screen formats and identical commands, and they were all graphics terminals. So as a result, you could write some really neat games on this thing.
Plato was the first sustained online community that was easily accessible and allowed institutions across the US to link together, sharing information, learning software, and became the perfect place to share early computer games. Warner quickly became involved in the creation of some of gaming's first, such as Empire, one of the first multiplayer action games, and Airfight, a multiplayer air combat simulator. Warner became an early adapter of the Apple II in 1977, and a year later founded Muse Software with fellow friends Ed Zarin and Jim Black. Warner found major success with Robot War, a game that would teach players how to write AI programming for a robot, and then pit them in a simulated battle arena with other robots. Shortly after, Warner became interested in the arcade game Berserk for its high-resolution graphics and innovative voice work. After watching the World War II film The Guns of Navarone, he had the idea to combine the gameplay ideas of Berserk with the narrative of a POW escaping a Nazi-controlled castle. The result is 1981's Castle Wolfenstein. The premise of Castle Wolfenstein is simple. As a POW who's broken out of their cell, you must traverse the halls of Castle Wolfenstein to find the secret war plans and then escape. At the beginning, you start with a gun and some ammo, at which point it is up to you, the player, and how you will deal with the many guards patrolling the halls. You can shoot Nazis, but this is always meant more as a last resort. Shooting alerts nearby enemies, and it only takes a few bullets to kill you. That's because the game isn't a shooter, but a stealth game, one of the very first. Enemies can be avoided, and uniforms can be worn as disguises to keep you safe, as long as Nazis don't get too close. Rather than killing a guard and wasting precious ammo, you could hold them up at gunpoint and frisk them for items. You open boxes for supplies and search dead enemies for keys to open doors. Not just any key, mind you, you need a specific key to open a specific door, leading to some tense trial and error. Or, if you have a grenade, you could just blow the door up. In addition to critical objects, you'll find more humorous items like bratwurst and schnapps. The game's got a pretty good sense of humor through its text. Castle Wolfenstein's now simplistic graphics are quite deceiving for anyone checking out the game nowadays, because it's a rather complex game. You play largely through trial and experimentation, seeing what works and how far the interactivity can be pushed. Repeated playthroughs offer a fresh challenge thanks to a randomly generated castle. The game sold 20,000 copies in its first 10 months, which at the time was no small feat, and it became a success. While the game didn't get a large mainstream audience, in the circles it did run in, the game was super popular and beloved. Silas Warner created a follow-up in '84 with Beyond Castle Wolfenstein. Structurally, it's a similar premise, but with more options for interactivity. You can holster your gun to preserve your disguise or bribe guards to let you pass. You now have checkpoints you must pass through. Nazis will stop you and ask to see your papers, at which point you have to give them the right number. The number changes the further you progress. Stealth is taken further by letting you drag dead bodies to hide them, and you get a dagger allowing for stealth kills. It also has one of the earliest known examples of a lockpicking minigame. Both Castle Wolfenstein and Beyond Castle Wolfenstein have left behind a legacy of innovative game design that was ahead of its time. Silas Warner's vision is something future Wolfenstein games would attempt to emulate to varying degrees. In 1991, up-and-coming studio id Software had just finished work on the second Commander Keen trilogy, and began planning out their next big game. Programmer John Carmack had been heavily focused on his 3D game engine, so fellow developer John Romero suggested a 3D remake of Castle Wolfenstein. The team all had fond memories of the original game, and felt the maze-like design of Castle Wolfenstein would be a great fit for their 3D engine. The original plan was to use an alternate title due to trademark concerns, but Muse Software had actually gone out of business several years earlier, letting the trademark lapse and allowing id to grab the Wolfenstein name. The original idea was a louder and faster version of Silas Warner's original game, with a greater focus on action but still preserving elements like dragging bodies and disguises. But Romero found this interrupted the flow of fast gameplay they wanted and ended up scrapping these ideas. The end result is Wolfenstein 3D. In Wolfenstein 3D, you play as William B.J. Blazkowicz, an American spy who has been captured in Castle Wolfenstein. Wolfenstein 3D shares a lot in common with the original Castle Wolfenstein in setting and goals, but its priorities and how you accomplish your task is very different. Because in this game, your main objective is, as John Romero put it, to mow down Nazis.
Oh! Oh!
Mein Leben!
Maps are handmade mazes. Due to the efficiency of their tools, it was able to design and create a map within a single day, leading to the quick creation of dozens of them. The original release included 3 episodes, each with 10 maps. The first episode was made available for free in a shareware version of the game, designed to let players try the game for themselves and help spread word of mouth. 3 more episodes were produced titled The Nocturnal Missions and were originally released separately, but newer releases of Wolfenstein 3D comes with all 6 episodes. Gameplay is simple. Get to the end of the level and kill as many Nazis as possible. And not just Nazis, but dogs, undead Nazis, evil doctors, and of course, Mecha Hitler.
Eva, auf Wiedersehen.
The labyrinthian design of the maps made memorization of the layout important to your success. The team was influenced by the feel of arcade games and incorporated challenges like a score and par time. There's also plenty of secrets to uncover. Fake walls reveal bonus gold, which gives you a higher score, or additional weapons and health. A standalone expansion pack, Spear of Destiny, was released a few months later. And if you search online, you can find numerous custom-made map packs for Wolf 3D. Wolfenstein 3D is often credited as the first ever first-person shooter. This isn't actually true, as games like Maze War have existed since 1974, but it is the game that popularized the concept and created a template for future games to follow. The game's popularity and influence on the whole of gaming has been well documented. The genre Wolfenstein 3D helped create it grew dramatically over the next decade. It pushed into new ground with better 3D spaces and multiplayer arenas with games like Doom and Quake. Meanwhile, studios like Valve pushed narrative forward with games like Half-Life, and World War II was becoming a popular setting thanks to Medal of Honor. Shooters were entering a new era of story and interactivity, and id Software felt the time was right to bring back Wolfenstein. Teaming up with publisher Activision, the new game wouldn't be developed by id themselves, but rather Grey Matter Interactive, who had previously worked with id on a Quake 2 mission pack. Grey Matter would handle the single player. New studio Nerve Software, which was founded by ex-id employee Brandon James, would work on the game's multiplayer component. Return to Castle Wolfenstein released on November 19th, 2001. The name of the game has multiple meanings to it. There's the direct in-game point that you are once again roaming the halls of Castle Wolfenstein. But you can also see the title as a return to the original ideas and visions of Silas Warner's original game. While it retains the fast-paced action of id's game, there was also an emphasis on stealth and finding alternate paths forward. This makes Return to Castle Wolfenstein a blend of both visions, while also bringing its own flavor as well. The story is a reimagining of Wolfenstein 3D. As a member of the Office of Secret Actions, William B.J. Blazkowicz infiltrates Castle Wolfenstein to investigate the Nazis' SS Paranormal Division. At first glance, Wolfenstein's dark, realistic tone keeps it in line with other World War II games of the time, but stands out by taking Wolf 3D's idea of fantastical technological experiments and the supernatural occult and runs with it. In addition to the typical Nazi soldiers, you'll fight undead hordes in ancient tombs and super soldier monstrosities in secret Nazi laboratories. The latter is created by Wilhelm Death's Head Strauss, a minor figure in this game but later on would become the series' most recognizable antagonist. The narrative is good pulpy fun, with over-the-top Nazi villains trying to resurrect ancient evil and plenty of cheesy dialogue.
The extraction process is beginning. It is only a matter of time now.
Excellent!
This even carried over to the weapons. While mostly realistic to the era, the game also features some more sci-fi weaponry, like the Tesla gun. At the time, the devs touted the game's flamethrower as the most realistic portrayal yet in gaming, and it's certainly a satisfying weapon to use. The game's stealth mechanics added variety and alternate ways to play. Enemies can be stabbed in the back, and guns like the pistol can be equipped with a silencer. Capable players can use stealth to prevent alarms from tripping, giving them a much easier time if they're low on health or ammo. But Return to Castle Wolfenstein's campaign was only half the game. For the first time, the series was given a multiplayer. Modes are team-based, with each side having objectives to complete. Primary objectives are required for victory, with secondary objectives that assist in aiding the team. Taking inspiration from games like Team Fortress, roles are class-based, with each class getting specific abilities and weapons. The game did stir some controversy, however, as it was the first game to allow players to play as Nazis in the multiplayer. Todd Hollenshed, chief executive of id Software at the time, dismissed this by saying, "There's a lot of critics in the game industry, and they look for things to criticize." The multiplayer is held in high regard for many PC players, and while a small amount of work is required on your end, it is still possible to get access to servers where people are still playing to this very day. On the whole, Return to Castle Wolfenstein was a massive success, earning high praise from critics and a dedicated fanbase. Plans were made for an expansion pack with both a new single-player and multiplayer mode created by developer Splash Damage. However, the single-player mode was never finished and ended up being scrapped. The multiplayer mode ended up being released as a free standalone game called Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. A further expansion of Return's multiplayer, coupled with it being a free release, made Enemy Territory insanely popular. On February 26, 2004, Wolfenstein's creator Silas Warner passed away after a long battle with kidney disease at the age of 55. As a pioneer of game programming, his work was influential in the growth of gaming as a whole. If you want to enjoy his work, many of the games he's created have been made available to play in the public domain by his wife, including Beyond Castle Wolfenstein. Looking to make a sequel to Return to Castle Wolfenstein, id Software teamed up with Raven Software for the project. Raven already had a long relationship with id, as far back as the early development of Wolfenstein 3D, as the two studios once shared the same street in Madison, Wisconsin. Raven had plenty of experience with id Tech, and being a subsidiary of Activision made them a perfect fit. The project has been famously rumored to be in development for 8 years, however, this is a bit of an exaggeration, as development of the game didn't start until several years after the release of Return to Castle Wolfenstein. The project was originally pitched as a true open-world game, with a non-linear narrative and exploration. However, after several years, Raven felt the game got too far away from the roots of Wolfenstein, and the scope and vision of the game changed. The final game, simply titled Wolfenstein, was released on August 18th, 2009. Wolfenstein 2009 is a sequel to Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Although outside of returning villain Death's Head, you don't really need to know anything about that game, making this more of a soft reboot. BJ Blazkowicz is even given a brand new appearance, and for the first time, talks.
Sorry to send you back into the field so soon, BJ, but you've dealt with this kind of thing before. You're the only man for the job.
Not a problem. When do I get started?
The narrative sees Blazkowicz sent to the fictional German city of Eisenstadt, which is a contested battleground between the Nazis and the resistance group, the Kreisau Circle. Blazkowicz works with their leader, Caroline Becker, to help liberate the city and stop the Nazis from harnessing the power of the Veil. Mechanically, Wolf-09 is in many ways the series' take on the late 2000s style of shooters popularized by Call of Duty. Health packs have been replaced with regenerating health, guns have iron sights, and combat is slower than previous games. The game does stand apart in several unique ways though. The city of Eisenstadt serves as a hub world where you will talk to characters and travel to major missions, which then take place in their own levels. You'll also get several side missions.
You'll need to go to the warehouse and steal a code book before it's moved to a new location. The warehouse should be on your map.
Doing these missions and finding collectibles have tangible benefits, as you can purchase upgrades for your weapons. While you can equip silencers and go stealth, it's not emphasized as much as it was in Return to Castle Wolfenstein. The biggest addition is a series of powers Blazkowicz can achieve with a magical medallion. There's Veil, which lets Blazkowicz enter an alternate dimension, where he moves faster and enemies and interactive objects are colored. It's also useful for secret hunting, as pathways behind walls open up. The other empowers include Meyer, which slows down time, Empower boosts damage, and Shield protects BJ from damage. While the campaign was certainly the main focus, Wolf-09 did include a multiplayer mode. However, even with the inclusion of the Veil powers, it was an unremarkable mode, and lacked the cult following Return to Castle Wolfenstein's multiplayer had. Overall, Wolfenstein's reception puts it as a bit of a black sheep for the series. It's not a bad game, but its average reviews and weak sales leave it as relatively unremarkable compared to other Wolfensteins. Funny enough though, it's also the rarest Wolfenstein game. About 2 months before the release of Wolf-09, Bethesda's parent company ZeniMax bought id Software. Because of the licensing deal it made with Activision before the purchase, Wolf-09 was still fine and released. But since the series was now in the hands of Bethesda, Activision eventually halted further sales of the game and removed it from Steam. This has made the game a bit of a rarity in recent years. I should at least briefly mention Wolfenstein RPG, a mobile game released by id Software. The original mobile version was released late 2008 and came to the iOS months later in 2009. Similarly to the previously released Doom RPG, the game uses the classic first-person perspective of Wolf 3D, but plays it as a turn-based game. Each step or action taken lets enemies do the same, creating a slower pace and lets players take their time and think about the next action. The game has since been removed from the App Store though, as it was a published partnership with EA, making its removal similar to what happened with Wolfenstein 09. While Wolf-09 was being released, over in Sweden, new developer Machine Games was born. The team was founded by former key members of Starbreeze. Machine Games initially had trouble finding a publisher, and found themselves in limbo for a year and a half before finally being picked up by Bethesda, the very publisher they wanted to work with the most. After making several failed pitches to Bethesda Softworks, they suggested that Machine Games visit id Software. The studio had a lot of nostalgic love for id's games, and after learning that no one was doing anything with Wolfenstein, the team put together a pitch for a new game. id loved the idea, and Machine Games was given access to the franchise. The result is 2014's Wolfenstein: The New Order. The New Order is a single-player only game, focusing on a strong narrative and a mix of both new and old-school shooter designs. The premise starts with an alternate World War II where the Allies are losing to the Axis forces and their superior technology. In a last-ditch effort, the Allies launch an all-out assault on the compound of Death's Head. The plan fails and BJ ends up in a 14-year coma until one day Nazis start killing everyone in the hospital he's staying at.
Nazi scum.
The rest of the game takes place during an alternate 1960s, where the whole world is ruled by Nazis. The New Order's greatest accomplishment is its portrayal of its characters, and the balance it strikes between a serious tone and over-the-top video game elements. For the first time, BJ Blazkowicz is given proper characterization, and it makes him so much more than the generic video game protagonist he's always been portrayed as.
In my dream, I smell the barbecue. I hear children. A dog. And I see someone. I think I see someone.
There's a wealth of side characters, from returning cast like Caroline Becker and Death's Head to newcomers like Anya. The most interesting is Fergus and Wyatt. In the game's opening, you choose which of them lives and which of them dies, and the narrative splits into 2 timelines. The core plot and events remain the same, but each timeline offers alternate cutscenes, conversations, and even characters.
In that moment, I glimpsed what a free mind can accomplish. What this world has turned its back on. I was on a ride no one else had taken, and in that moment, I was at the feet of a god.
The game also makes great use of its setting, offering a realized take on a Nazi-influenced 1960s. References to alternate versions of historical events and historical figures pop up. They even recorded German versions of 60s pop music.
Es gibt ein Haus in Neu-Berlin, man nennt es Haus Abendrot. Es war der Ruin vieler guter Jungs, von mir, mein Gott, litt ich Not.
There's also numerous nods to the series as a whole, with the standout being Blazkowicz's Nightmares, where he enters the first level of Wolf 3D. The gameplay uses modern elements of shooters today, such as a light cover system and iron sights, but it blends it with the old Wolfenstein health and armor system. Any gun can be dual-wielded for extra power, and completing mini-challenges unlock perks, allowing for additional combat options. After being downplayed in Wolfenstein 2009, a greater emphasis on stealth makes a return. Larger rooms will have captains that must be silently killed, or they'll summon reinforcements. But unlike Return to Castle Wolfenstein, there are never moments that require stealth, and you're always free to take off the silencer and go in guns blazing. Up until the game's launch, people were unsure how the game would pan out. But after release, it quickly became a critical hit. A lot of people were surprised how enjoyable the narrative was, and appreciated the game's throwback to older shooter designs. Considering the middling reception of Wolfenstein 2009, The New Order was the glorious return fans had been waiting 13 years for. Released only a year later was a standalone expansion called Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. The narrative takes place right before the New Order's prologue, where Blazkowicz returns to Castle Wolfenstein, seeking the location of Death's Head's compound. The Old Blood brings back the occult elements of the series that were missing from the New Order, and is overall a less serious tone.
Die Papiere bitte!
Augenblick, warten Sie. Aus Frankfurt. Sind Sie Frankfurter?
Ja, ein Hotdog.
So ein komischer Kauz. Die spinnen, die Amis. Hotdog. Die werden sich wundern, wenn wir an der Macht sind.
In a lot of ways, it's Machine Games' own take on Return to Castle Wolfenstein. The game is filled with even more nods to the original games, and the Nightmare levels are expanded with more recreations of Wolf 3D levels. Compared to the New Order, The Old Blood is light on narrative, and the focus rests more on the gameplay. There's a few new weapons, but other than that, it's the same great gameplay in a tight 6-hour campaign.
quick. There you go. 1, 2, 3. You'd be so back. Now, Mr. Blazkowicz, I'm very happy to see you awake. Not so happy to see you out of bed. Where is she? Last time I saw her, she was with Caroline defending the cell platform elevator.
Then point me in that direction, Seth.
You know how long you've been in bed? 5 months. Your body is broken. You understand? Your kidneys are failing. You might have difficulties to urinate, to use your schmeck hole, to do many other things.
for this. Just tell me.
Rumors of a sequel to The New Order had been circulating since E3 2016, when Bethesda opened their press conference with an old MS-DOS-style boot-up sequence. A list of id Software games were shown, along with their release dates, and next to the old blood was something called New Colossus. BJ's voice actor Brian Bloom further teased the project. The game was officially announced as Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus at E3 2017. The game is a direct continuation of The New Order, taking place 6 months later. Blazkowicz and his resistance group make their way to America, and begin recruiting new members for a revolution against the Nazis. The game will take into account both timelines from The New Order, and all major characters from the previous game return. New gameplay additions include an upgrade system for weapons, new abilities like smashing through walls, and the ability to dual-wield 2 different weapons. The New Colossus is a unique situation, as it's the first Wolfenstein game to be a direct continuation of a previous one. This also makes Machine Games the first developer to make more than one Wolfenstein game, outside of Silas Warner. As the second part in a planned trilogy, we'll find out how The New Colossus stacks up in the legacy of Wolfenstein on October 27th, 2017.
Dr. Shane, darling, Dr. Shane, thank you for seeing me again.
Hey every guys, welcome. Hey everyone, welcome back to Potato Mode, the show where we take the most beautiful games we know and drag them through the mud. We take their graphics and just turn them into mush. My name is Joey. I'm joined here by Callie Plaggy.
Hello.
And this week, in case you guys haven't noticed, we are playing Skyrim. Thank you to, I don't know how many people actually sent in a request to see the game potatofied, but here we are. We finally got around to it.
I'm very excited. I think I was one of the people who requested it.
You were the one that convinced me to do it to begin with. But we have the game running at 1080p right now. You can walk around, Callie.
Yeah, I'm on. You got me on this cool platform.
Yeah, it took a lot of jumping. But we also have a couple of mods installed right now. If you're not familiar with the ENB series, it's an open source mod that allows people to put their own shaders and lighting changes and everything. There's a lot to explain with that, so I won't go into full detail, but I'll put a link into the description below if you want to read more about the ENB series. This game is looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, for a 7-year-old game,
it's gonna be 7 this year.
Yeah, almost 7-year-old game. It's looking pretty fine. I want to check out Riften because Riften is my favorite place that I ever go to in Skyrim. Yeah.
So where is this?
This is the sewer, basically. And there's all sorts of cool stuff going on around here. There's all sorts of stuff down here.
Dark and damp.
Riften's not a great place. It's not a great place to live.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many places in Skyrim that I feel like we could maybe give some people advice about where to go. Maybe like a travel guide, if you will.
I think you're right, Joey. This is on the way to the Thieves Guild, and this is where you go if you want to. Oh my God!
By the way, you're level 1.
Dying. I'm level 1.
Well, that didn't go so well.
Well, okay, so I think we can say pretty confidently not to go to Riften. Windhelm's interesting. It's the oldest city in Skyrim, which means it has a lot of traditions that aren't great. Basically, one area for the Dark Elves to live, and then one area for the Nords and High Elves to live.
Callie, do you have any recommendations for places we can visit in Windhelm?
We got, well, this cool cemetery. So would not recommend going here unless you want to be involved in a murder investigation.
That's a good point.
I've started the quest.
Yeah, it may not be a welcoming place, as you can see from all the blood, but at the very least, it looks nice. Well, I think we've seen a good amount of Windhelm looking nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think it deserves a little potato-fication. So here we have the Nexus Mod Manager, the #1 mod manager in all of gaming, brought to you by GameSpot. We have one mod here, and that's all we're going to need right here. And it's called, quite fittingly, Terrible Textures.
Not just terrible textures, but terrible textures for weak computers. I'm so nervous.
I want to see... Oh, my God. I was about to say, it's going to be really weird, because you know what? I just realized I didn't take out the ENB mod, which means that everything is still, like, spectacularly, like, bright and glossy. But we got more than a couple of things going on here.
All right, so these doors were, I think, just normal, like, ironwork doors. And now they're like the gates of hell.
Can we? Okay. This is the Palace of the Kings, apparently. We've always gone from the highest settings and then dropped it down to the low settings and then went and did, like, all the crazy stuff.
Huh.
When you combine the two highest and lowest settings at the same time, this is kind of what you get. Are we in heaven?
Oh my God, I don't even know how to describe it, but I feel like I'm in some weird purgatory where I'm halfway between real life. You know, like in Harry Potter where he's on the King's Cross station?
Yeah.
And it all looks like white and bright, but you can still tell where you are.
We're like halfway in that.
That's where we're at right now. I am so disturbed. Look at how glossy this meat is. Let's go to Winterhold. Oh, I can't fast travel from this location.
You gotta leave the purgatory first. This guy's happy to see you. This
it's
oven.
Like a Playmobil oven.
Where were we supposed to go here?
I wanted to go to the college. I think that's it. But I don't know how to get there anymore. Oh.
We can't go. We can't enter the college yet.
Man, it's really hard to track what I have and have not unlocked in this game.
I'm pretty sure the save file has nothing unlocked other than
no
every
quests,
single location.
Just locations. Well, here you have it. The College of
Come visit.
The College of Winterhold. It's great.
3 out of 5 stars.
Okay, so this is the muddiest this game has looked so far. We don't have any gold!
We have nothing. We just literally woke up from like a 50-year coma and went on our merry way. Oh, he's definitely gonna see you.
Yeah.
Who puts a cabbage in the oven? Okay, well, we have that. That's all we know.
You know, sometimes you just gotta yell. Let's check out Mora Solitude. It's a very big city in Skyrim.
Things to do. Number 1.
Number 1, go to the catacombs.
Get lost. Then
That's
die.
Okay, the fire still looks real good, actually.
Still trying to wrap my head around everything that's going on right now.
It looks like a balloon animal. This doesn't... Oh my God.
Wait,
It doesn't even have individual ribs.
Wait, go first person here. Oh my God. Oh.
Look at it. He just... What's going on with his pelvis?
Yeah, I think the balloon animal analogy is pretty apt.
Look at these, like, office building stairs.
This is the Hall of the Dead?
It doesn't look so grand, right?
This is not very deathly, if you ask me.
To Falkreath. Aha. Oh, wait, we are not going to Falkreath. All right, well...
Plan B.
Plan B. Let's go to Morthal.
Oh my God. Okay, well, this is I feel like this is becoming a little bit normal. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the settings of the NVIDIA Profile Inspector. If you've seen the show before, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to do that right now.
This looks pretty muddy.
Okay, it's pretty bad, yeah. So what I did in attempts to...
Wait. Did you see it? It, like, moved. There we go.
I think those are shadows. Where'd he go?
Oh my God. Anyway, what'd you do?
Well, basically, I turned off the ENB mod so you can see by the decrease in like lighting quality. But I also attempted to do the trick with the NVIDIA Profile Inspector, which is turning all the textures down to like nothing, but apparently the people are unaffected by it.
Are they on a different...
They're on a different wavelength.
They're on a different plane of existence. Okay, so the shadows on the people have been affected, for sure.
Yeah, but like the models and everything are fine, and I can't figure out how to change that. That's going to be a problem. Maybe we should start a new game.
You know what? We should start a new game.
I think that's it.
Okay, the horse is pretty...
He's looking good?
Do you see that boy? He looks extra chubby.
Is no one going to point out the fact that all the trees look like razor blades? Anyone?
Okay.
Okay, let's speed this up a little. Let's name him Spud. Keep it in theme with the show, right?
I'm waiting for the dragon to show up. This will be the big entrance.
Actually, can I do one thing before we go any further? Maybe right before the dragon comes out.
Oh my god.
I think we are in business.
I think we're in business too.
Ah, yes. Hard work sometimes pays off, guys. Never give up on your dreams.
Never give up.
Always be striving for something greater.
Oh my god. I've never been happier.
Next, the cat.
Oh, that's us.
That's us.
Forgot about that.
Let's go, Spud.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting angle.
Oh, no.
I kind of want to go back to the character select screen.
I think
just
we
a little
should.
bit. Hey, he still looks pretty good. He looks actually a little bit more menacing.
I know, because he's just a shadow.
He's just shadow. He's just darkness all over.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I'm just gonna go in here because I know he'll come right to us. Hold on. I'm almost. Oh.
He's like, don't look at me.
That's scarier than the dragon. Ew, he still has pupils.
Yeah, well, no, that's a good thing, right?
Oh.
Usually when we get to this point, all the pupils are gone. Is he giving him the side eye?
A little bit. Oh, I got the blood on my screen.
It's gonna get real blocky. You're not gonna be able to see anything.
You know, Helgen, of all the sights in Skyrim, is not the most compelling.
Think we should go somewhere else?
Yeah, let's try it out.
Now that we can actually mess up people's faces.
I want to see Lydia again.
Lydia!
What happened to you? Oh my god, it's like they're wearing someone else's skin.
This is not Lydia. This is a robot with Lydia's face on it.
I know. I can't even find my way around because I'm in this like weird world that. Oh my god. Ruined books. Oh no, I don't want to. Wait.
Someone forgot to finish it, apparently. Steal.
I like that one page that was different. This one. I want to see some horses.
Okay.
We'll just fast travel to a stable and
steal a horse and ride into the whatever the sunset currently looks like.
Where are you, beauties?
Well, now you have a bounty on this. This is like Tron.
He doesn't even move like a horse should. All right.
Climbing a mountain sounds like a perfect idea. Potato mode or not, this never gets old. It really doesn't.
Oh, no.
You're fine. You're fine.
I don't exist in this world.
Well, I think that's about the best place we could end this.
This is where I live now.
Oh my goodness. Well, anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have a suggestion for another game that you want to see potatofied, just leave in the comments below. You can hit us up on Twitter, and we will see you next Friday. There we go.
Perfect.
This is just a little shortcut I learned from the Fallout 4 episode that we did. I think the lack of like any sort of gesticulation is just making things a little bit more funny.
The heartland of Tamriel. She's ailing. Maybe beyond saving. But I'm sure you'll take a fair crack at it all the same. Welcome to Cyrodiil.
Since Bethesda released Skyrim back in 2011, modding teams spanning the globe have taken it upon themselves to recreate all of Tamriel. It's an ambitious, long-term project that aims to release new areas as they are completed. Right now, you can get a taste of the project with Beyond Skyrim Bruma, a region of Cyrodiil that's located directly south of Skyrim. However, Bruma is only the first step in a marathon. According to the Beyond Skyrim website, there are 7 regions being recreated using Bethesda's modding tool. Iliac Bay to the west, which consists of High Rock and Hammerfell, Morrowind to the east, Cyrodiil in the center of Tamriel, Elsweyr and Black Marsh to the south, and Atmora and Roskraya north of Skyrim. Each of these regions have unique cultures, climates, infrastructures, architecture, vegetation, and politics. To say this project is ambitious is a huge understatement. What's more is that Beyond Skyrim relies entirely on volunteers and plans to release all of these mods for free. Now, this isn't the first time something like this has been attempted. In fact, Tamriel Rebuilt, a community recreating Tamriel within Elder Scrolls 3's engine, still delivers regular updates. And when Oblivion released in 2006, modders attempted to create something similar with 4's improved engine, but that never quite came to fruition, at least to the same extent as Tamriel Rebuilt. Modders use the now defunct website Sograd Tower as a hub for creators to collaborate and share their work with one another. Unfortunately, many modders were dissatisfied with how these large-scale world-space mods were handled. As Beyond Skyrim's website puts it, too much effort had been scattered across too many projects, with duplication of effort and lack of resource sharing becoming an endemic problem in the community. So, as Skyrim's release date approached, the community began to discuss how these large-scale mods should be handled. While Beyond Skyrim wasn't the idea of a single person or team, the website points to a post started by Candlemaster on the Bethsoft forums that ignited the spark that led to Beyond Skyrim. Rather than unifying different teams to create the entirety of Tamriel, Beyond Skyrim, along with Dark Creations, a hub for modders, was used as a vehicle to coordinate with different teams, share resources, and give all the teams a single platform to share their creations with fellow modders and the world. Apart from a set of rules and procedures outlined in the Beyond Skyrim Constitution, the only caveat is that these regions have to be lore-friendly, take place around the same time as the events of Skyrim, and the overall quality must be on par or exceed that of Elder Scrolls V. But again, the team behind Cyrodiil and Bruma is only one of 7. Each of these teams have their own design philosophies, region-specific resources, and different stories to tell. Rich Marin, one of the leads for Cyrodiil, related it to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. All of these separate mods are free to tell their own stories, but the developers are aware that these creations and stories should fit within the larger universe that Beyond Skyrim has put forth. For example, one team can't create a questline that destroys all of Tamriel. Marin has been modding for 6 years now. He began on a project to recreate Solstheim, a small region northeast of Skyrim. However, weeks into the project, Bethesda announced Dragonborn, an expansion that took place in the very same region they were recreating. The project was shuttered, and Rich took notice of an inactive Cyrodiil project without a lead. He threw his name in the running, and with some help from Marcus Liberty, a creative who helped with Bruma, he got the position. Over the years, Beyond Skyrim has unified certain aspects of development, such as voice acting and the music department. In fact, the music you're hearing in this video was composed by Daniel Rand for Beyond Skyrim Bruma. But a lot of these decisions are left to the autonomous teams. While new ideas still need to be vetted, the Cyrodiil team is open to experimentation, even if it doesn't quite sync up with the lore. And that's one of the many things that's so cool about this project. As messy as Elder Scrolls lore can get, there is so much room for interpretation and untapped potential. Most developers build off their lore as new titles release, but these mods have the power to give us a fresh and vastly different take on areas that were explored years ago or only referenced. In Bruma alone, I can already see how the team is planting seeds for a larger plotline, and I couldn't be more excited to see where they take it.
And I hear rumors, whispers on the wind, of insurrectionist groups
agitating against the current government.
There are so many opportunities to explore here. Take Iliac Bay. A few weeks ago, the team released a beautiful trailer for their mod, and it's brimming with potential. Sure, we saw High Rock and Hammerfell in the Elder Scrolls 2, but never quite like this. Seeing lush jungles and deserts is not only a breath of fresh air, but it holds thousands of new possibilities and scenarios that we would have never experienced in Skyrim. What Larian, Meglos, and the team are doing with Morrowind is another perfect example of that. In the official lore, Morrowind was devastated by a volcano before the events of Skyrim. Things are very different than what you remember from the Elder Scrolls 3, and the Morrowind team is embracing that. Parts of the world are caked with ash and a smoky haze hangs over the province. The prospect of this is even more interesting if you consider the fact that we may never see what Morrowind looked like after the volcano erupted in any official capacity. The mod is appropriately titled Morrowind: The Star-Wounded East. Both Meglos and Larian joined the Morrowind team in 2016. After a shift in direction and reshuffling of leadership, the two found themselves as directors. While they stick to lore whenever possible, they get a lot of inspiration from the Tamriel Rebuilt team. The geography, on the other hand, is pieced together from multiple sources. Once again, the team considers Tamriel Rebuilt as their primary source, but many of the locations from Elder Scrolls Online also appear in their vision of Morrowind. When I asked Marin about all these different directions the mods are going, he said that he thinks of Beyond Skyrim as a huge collection of work for folks who are trying to break into the industry or bolster their portfolios. In fact, Larian, one of the directors on Morrowind, is hoping for this to be his foot in the door once he's done with school. As of now, the only Beyond Skyrim mod available is Bruma. It adds the Geralt Mountains and the frigid city of Bruma. With the mod installed, you can find a border crossing on the southern end of Skyrim. After convincing the guards to let you through, you take your first steps in Cyrodiil. Having played around 15 hours of this mod, the first thing I noticed was how professional it looks. The voice acting, branching narratives, and quest design is as good, if not better at times, than anything you'd see in a Bethesda Game Studios RPG. Plus, it has its fair share of weird quests, which I personally love.
Yes, the Nern Theater, the center stage of the Imperial City, of the world. And they cast me out! The irredeemable fools!
According to Marin, Beyond Skyrim Bruma originally began as a proof of concept. The scope was much smaller and the main focus would be on the city itself. After promising a summer 2014 release date, the team decided that if they did hit that release window, they would have to drastically cut back on content and the level of polish wouldn't be up to par.
Back in July, we came to a difficult decision. We were going to delay Beyond Skyrim Bruma. We had announced it on our Facebook page, but we decided to announce it here also to make sure everyone is aware.
It wasn't until 2017 that the mod finally released, and it's clear that all that extra time went to good use. There were more quests, more creatures, an original score, and more detail overall. The completed mod feels more like an overly ambitious expansion than a demo of what's to come. 3 more years might sound like a long time, but creating something even of this scale is a massive endeavor. These large-scale mods begin with a height map, a low-poly aerial map of a landmass. Then, for Bruma at least, the assets like buildings, weapons, dungeons, armor sets, and vegetation are created. We are talking thousands of individually crafted items. Even something as simple as the iron weapons from Skyrim were redesigned for Bruma. After the space has been molded, these assets are added, and then quests, characters, and storylines are implemented. Then you have to consider voice acting, music, sound effects, bug testing, performance, animations, interiors, balancing, NPC routines, text found in books scattered throughout the world, and so on. The point is, in order to create something of this caliber, it requires a lot of time. And their work is starting to really pay off. The Bruma trailer has over 1 million views on YouTube, nearly 1 million downloads on Nexus mods, and 250,000 downloads on Xbox One. And it sounds like this success is exciting for the other teams as well. According to Meglos from the Morrowind team, Bruma really put them on the map. Many more people became aware of this project, and in turn, more people joined the various teams. Above all though, it proved to them that what they were trying to achieve could actually be done. However, Marin isn't sure if this success will continue forever. Like Oblivion and Morrowind before this, modders typically follow the games that will get their creations the most exposure, and fans typically care more about the latest iteration. While I can't imagine these mods shutting down when the Elder Scrolls 6 releases, it certainly does pose a threat. The best case scenario is that these mods release during Skyrim's life cycle. Fortunately for the modding teams, Bethesda has stated that its next installment is coming, but it's still a ways out. And as Meglos points out, people have been modding Morrowind for over 15 years. The community is still going strong. At most, Meglos believes that they will see a drop in membership when 6 launches, but production on the mods won't halt altogether. Another common fear for a project like this is turnover. When your team is entirely composed of volunteers, you'd think the workforce would come and go frequently. However, Marin assured me that that isn't necessarily the case. While he couldn't speak for the other teams, the core group behind Cyrodiil has been around for 3 to 4 years, and as of now, Cyrodiil has roughly 40 to 50 members, made up of artists, audio designers, writers, level designers, animators, and so on. But even for 50 dedicated people, this is still a massive undertaking. Morrowind, on the other hand, has a larger headcount. However, Larian did mention that 3D artists can be difficult to hold on to. Due to Skyrim's dated engine, 3D artists have stricter limitations than other departments. Despite the scope of this project, Marin, Larian, and Meglos made it clear that life comes first. As exciting and demanding as all these projects may be, it shouldn't take priority over school, work, well-being, or family. After all, there is no money involved in any of these projects. Most of these volunteers are trying to do the impossible while living a life. Typically, when we hear about mods of this scale, they either never see the light of day or are forgotten when they finally release. It's tough to keep a project like this going without a significant amount of money backing it, and even harder when your developers are largely made up of volunteers. Nevertheless, these teams push onward. Beyond Skyrim feels like a direct response to the failings and shortcomings of previous standalone mods made for Oblivion and Morrowind. Rather than working entirely independent of one another, the Beyond Skyrim teams have built something that allows everyone to work toward a similar goal while blazing their own unique trails. Against all odds, they are creating something far bigger than what Bethesda originally created in 2011. Something far bigger than anything we typically see from AAA developers, and something that's fulfilling the dream many never thought was possible. The dream of recreating Tamriel is slowly becoming a reality. So I think a little patience on our end isn't too much to ask. In an industry where publishers hide content behind paywalls and drip feed players in order to keep them coming back, it's refreshing to see a game that's being kept alive entirely by the community. Apart from re-releases, Bethesda stopped updating Skyrim and adding DLC years ago. Yet I still find myself coming back every few months thanks to folks like Marin, Larian, and Meglos. To me, Skyrim no longer feels like that janky immersive RPG Bethesda created all those years ago. It's an adventure that's constantly changing beneath my feet and heading in all sorts of exciting directions I would have never imagined. It's hard to say whether or not Beyond Skyrim will hit all those lofty goals they've set for themselves, but as someone looking in from the outside, it's clear they have built up an infrastructure to not only make a bigger Tamriel possible, but attainable.
This is not the end! It's only the beginning!
This is Justin Haywald reading Peter Brown's final review for Doom on Nintendo Switch. There was a time when the thought of playing a game like 2016's Doom on Nintendo Switch seemed too good to be true. Yet here we are playing Doom on Switch, and while it's no doubt impressive to see it running on a portable system, Nintendo's convertible console can't stand up to the performance of other consoles or PCs. Doom has endured a few compromises during its transition to a more modest platform. Depending on your tolerance for blurry visuals and fiddly controls, these cut corners may be a deal breaker, no matter how fascinating the experience is at first blush.
presence at unsafe levels. Lockdown.
One thing is certain, however, Doom's campaign is all here, accompanied by the leaderboard-centric arcade mode. Just like before, you push through hordes of demons with bullets and gut-wrenching melee takedowns, while a heavy metal soundtrack encourages you to go faster, to hit harder. As enemies scale, your weaponry follows, offering a gratifying escalation of excitement befitting Doom's reputation. This is not to say that Doom's campaign was perfect to begin with, and the same issues it had in the past persist here. There's a fair amount of repetition to deal with, some of which diminishes what should be a monumental milestone, landing on the ground in hell. You wind up going to and fro multiple times, and despite the feverish action that carries you along the way, there's an amount of deja vu to contend with that saps your enthusiasm, if ever so slightly. Ultimately, Doom's fast-paced combat makes the occasionally repetitive journey worth taking, and the addition of arcade mode allows you to focus on action alone if you have little interest in the game's so-so narrative or mission structure. The mode was introduced on other platforms in a post-release update, and is designed for people who want to either practice their speedrunning skills or rank on internet leaderboards. Multipliers and other score-boosting elements have been introduced to encourage different tactics, and in some cases to create an unlikely path around a map for optimal scores and efficiency. Every stage of the campaign is unlocked in arcade mode from the start, and you're allowed to pick and choose from weapons that would normally be unavailable, in addition to every rune perk when choosing your loadout. The freedom to hop back and forth throughout the game is a boon as a returning player, though it's constructed in such a way that you might want to dip your toes in the campaign from the start to get your bearings. Unless you're able to find the rare extra lives amidst all the chaos, one death is all it takes for your run to end in arcade mode. You may also want to forego playing handheld at all. One of the unfortunate realities of playing such a demanding game with Switch Joy-Cons is that you're bound by the limitations of small analog sticks. Doom offers sensitivity and camera smoothing adjustments that do help to a degree, but compared to playing on the full-size Pro Controller, Joy-Cons feel noticeably less reliable. And despite the options menu hinting at motion controls when docked, they don't apply to aiming. You just waggle the right Joy-Con to melee enemies. Switch's screen can also prove problematic when facing a room of sprinting demons. It may just be too small to provide the encompassing experience the game's toughest challenges demand. It's also strange to see the UI as it is, with a font size so small that you'll be hard-pressed to quickly read menus when playing on docked. None of this is to say that Doom is unplayable or unenjoyable on the go, but it's definitely the least optimal way to play. No matter how you approach playing Doom on Switch, you'll undoubtedly have to contend with blurry visuals. Bethesda has promised the game will run at 720p regardless of whether your Switch is docked or not. In practice, even if the game is outputting a 720p signal, there are frequent instances when the game shifts into lower gear, presenting not only low-res textures and models, but an overall muddied image that indicates dynamic resolution switching. There are rare moments when Doom will appear sharp and clear, but be prepared to face drastic swings in quality, including plenty of disappointing haze.
3, 2, 1. Remember, no survivors.
This is most apparent during multiplayer matches where large groups of players on screen cause the resolution to plummet, and expect FPS dips in maps that contain a lot of geometry and lighting effects. Even so, it's easy to jump into a few matches and get some enjoyment out of Doom's multiplayer. It maintains the game's emphasis on speed and firepower, and presentation issues aside, performs just as well as you'd hope when it comes to matchmaking and match stability. With plenty of modes and unlockables to tinker with, there's plenty to keep you busy if you need a break from the campaign.
Narrow victory.
If you can stand to look at a lesser version of Doom's once captivating world, you'll find that the game plays well enough on Switch so long as you've got a TV in front of you and a Pro Controller in hand. There's nothing else like it on a portable system, but be prepared to face a handful of compromises, especially if you're used to playing on other platforms. It's an impressive port that begs you to consider gameplay over graphics, and it succeeds more often than not.
You need to remove each lens individually. Carefully release the hinges.
Warning. Energy contamination detected.
Head.
You gotta cut them in. You gotta cut them in half. That's the classic way. Okay. We're not Chris Angel or anything. We don't cut our heads off and put them back together. We cut the torsos off.
Can you do torso? I mean, that's. Show them the head trick. Yes! Yes! That's a good trick.
Hello again, welcome back to Potato Mode, the show where we take the most beautiful games we know and turn them into mush. Right here alongside me is Rob Handlery once again.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
And today, magic is in the air.
Oh.
Because we are playing Fallout 4 right here. Probably one of my favorite things about the game is that you can give your own story to whoever you want, whatever character you make.
Role-playing.
And so today, because I love magic so much, I used to love it a whole lot as a kid, used to watch it all the time. Here we have the greatest 90s stage magician of all time.
Yes.
And that's Lance Burton. He has been living in the wasteland for a good couple decades, you know, traveling in and out between Vegas and whatnot.
Okay.
But now that everything is destroyed, he is feeling down. He wants to get back on his feet, and we need to help him.